no doubt others who have more experience than I of enabling dialogue between people of different views about sexuality. I can only say that after my 20 years of conducting such conversations in various locations, as a bishop and since retirement, I'm sure of 4 things. First, that the conversation is possible. Second, that it depends on allowing all voices to be heard in a context where there are no threats of being disadvantaged in ministry. Third, that while both sides may believe the debate is settled, and that belief has to be accepted as part of the situation, there is still the possibility of mutual recognition and acceptance and real conversation. And fourth, that the change that comes about in such conversations is not something as simple as just people changing their minds on the issue in dispute, but other changes at once more subtle and more far-reaching. The Archbishop's constant insistence that this matter cannot be resolved by creating facts on the ground is simply not realistic about this or any other dispute where the facts on the ground have been established for reasons of conscience and integrity by both sides. The facts on the ground are what reveal the importance of the matter in hand. To ask that they disappear is to require people of passionate conviction to engage in a debate with no voice. Above all, what we need is not to take our eye off the issue, that of the treatment to be accorded to LGBT people and the ways in which they have, over many generations, not just in the last few decades, sought to live lives obedient to the gospel within the cultures in which we all, sexual majorities and minorities alike, seek to do just that. To leave that issue behind in favour of the worthy but secondary issue of how to keep the Anglican Communion together will stunt our discernment, and it won't keep the Anglican Communion together either. The Archbishop says the enterprise is, quote, becoming the church God wants us to be for the better proclaiming of the liberating gospel of Jesus Christ. But that means engaging in the search for the truth together, not settling for the stalemate, which is what his paper actually advocates. What is at stake is our faith that God's truth will be discovered. That is, that we shall learn which of the faltering steps we all take in the living of holy lives with our bodies and our passions will form part of the choreography of promise, the one that will prepare us for the marriage supper of the Lamb, where all our human loving will be transformed and celebrated. Towards that vision we look, and nothing else will do.
The other crunch issue which is just approaching, well, has been around for a long time, is the consecration of women to the episcopate. And it feels as though there's a danger that that also might be running into the sand in the next few months. I just wonder if there are any parallels, or if you see if the same sort of process is going on there as is going on here, or whether there are different issues around.
Well, I think that's a very interesting one because, of course, it doesn't appear in the Archbishop's paper at all. And that's because there is some kind of need to foster the fantasy that whereas we dealt with the ordination of women really well, we're not dealing with this one really well. Now, if you talk, and I do, to bishops who are deeply opposed to the ordination of women as bishops, if you talk to them, they will agree within 2 seconds that that's just nonsense. And indeed, of course, it's their view that it was because we allowed provincial autonomy to prevail in the matter of the ordination of women that we are now in the situation that we're in. I do understand, and I've been told since I got here, that it's very understandable that we get caught into a competition of victimhood in this kind of conversation, or a conversation about, or competition around which issues are important and which we should be addressing. I understand that. But it is very important, isn't it, that we hold on to the fact that the issue around gay sexuality and LGBT people is being pressed upon us because it has proved to be able to get energies aroused which it's not possible to get aroused on other issues. One of my American friends that I talked to about all of this said the traditionalists in the Episcopal Church, the separatist groups in the Episcopal Church, tried very hard to achieve separation over the prayer book, the changes in the prayer book in the Episcopal Church. And as he put it, they got no traction. They then tried over the issue of the ordination of women, and they got some. But they think they found their issue. And I think women should be bishops. There should be bishops who are women, and I'm quite clear about that. But I also think that we need to allow ourselves to make this distinction, that something has been found which seems to be equal to the task of getting people worked into a frenzy, which is what some people do, and we need to resist that.
Can I add something to that, which is, the other point is that we have to remember that the Church of England is separate from the Anglican Communion as well, because one of the problems is that all of these conversations are held up in the Church of England while we wait for the rest of the community to do the listening process, and that could be 2 years.
I just came to the conclusion, and that's why I'm sitting here, that the time had come when the poor Rowan, how dreadful this must all be for you, had to be supported by a much more quasi-disciplinary conversation in which he is actually held to certain things that are important. I actually believe that there isn't a necessary opposition between being firm and being loving, and indeed that sometimes the former is a prerequisite for the latter. So that's, I think, what I would say. The point is that we have got to stop pretending that there is a subject which is so painful and so difficult that the ordinary processes of discernment don't work. That's not true.